I'm speaking today on serendipity. And I want to thank Nolan and Busasewe for introducing my topic so well. Because I believe very much in serendipity, which is the power of things that happen all by themselves, automatic things that happen by themselves. And so Nolan, with his talking of the coincidences that happen in your lives, and Busasewe with the stories of those coincidences and being in the right place at the right time, that's all about serendipity. So if I show you a picture that I've done, I know that I could do this online, but I don't have an online version right now. Things are starting around. This is a picture of the chakras, which I'm not going to go through in detail. And the one chakra which I'm interested in is the crown chakra, which in this diagram I've got at the bottom. And so what I want to talk about is a story that happened to me on the 4th of February, 1996. On that day, it was a Sunday. It was a very hot day in Cape Town, and I was working. At the time, I was engaged in a very big project, a software development project. I was working pretty much 7 days a week. And it was about 3 p.m. and the sun was streaming in my flat in Sea Point, and I decided to go to the beach. And I drove down to Worcester Road, which was the nearest road to me. And at the T-junction with the beach road, I thought if I turn right, I'm going to end up going to Muizenberg, and if I turn left, I'm going to end up going to Camps Bay or Clifton, and it's going to be very busy. And I'm going to go to that beach because that beach is the emptiest beach in Cape Town. And so I went to that beach, and I sat down about 2 or 3 meters from a girl in a blue bikini. And it so happened that some time later, someone was walking up and down the beach looking for something, and then she joined him, this blue bikini girl, and then I joined them because I don't believe that curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity may have killed a cat, but definitely not all cats. And I'm that curious cat with, however many lives one needs. So I went to investigate, and it turned out we were looking for the man's glasses that he left somewhere. We couldn't find the glasses, but Mariana and I found each other, my wife Mariana, and we married all these years later. We actually got married 2 years, 2 months and 22 days after we met. And that was also coincidental because that was a particular day that was available at the Ambassador Hotel, which is now Aurum and not a hotel anymore. But the thing is, I was just discussing this with Mariana earlier today when I was preparing for this talk. And she said, just remember to tell them why I was on the beach. And the reason that Mariana was on the beach was for exactly the same reason I was on the beach. That was the beach in Cape Town when no one went to that beach. But that particular day, the gods had their favor on us so that my wife and I could meet each other under incredible circumstances. And so after we got married, my wife said that we have to remember our wedding anniversary, but we also have to remember our anniversary of meeting, which God arranged, serendipity arranged, the serendipity of the story that allows us to be in the right place at the right time, to see these amazing coincidences. And my particular view is that there aren't any coincidences. Every coincidence is a miracle. We need to see these signs on our path, on our journey, and the signal amongst all the noise, fake news, or is it true news, or what's happening in Ukraine, or whatever, all this noise, amongst all the noise is a signal, and we need to find that signal, and we need to see what is appropriate for us in this particular situation, that signal amongst the noise. I want to give you some other examples of serendipity. You add a robot, a traffic light, and as you're about to go, the light turns to green, your car chokes off, and you're busy trying to restart the car, and the people behind you are hooting, and half a second later, a truck goes through the intersection. And you know that if you had gone, you would be dead. And I know that's happened to people. What's happened to me is that I was driving on the Black River Parkway one day, past where they're building the new Amazon at the moment, and around the corner, and suddenly my foot was on the brake. And I didn't put my foot there, but if my foot hadn't been there, I would have crashed into stopped cars in front of me. These are all examples of serendipity where the crown chakra is operating at that level where you're in tune with other things, where you allow all of that kind of information to flow, if you like. I'm just going to look at my crib notes, which I've put on the screen here. So we've got lucky coincidences and strange sequences of events. One of the other things that happens in serendipity is you'll discover that there's 2 scientific laboratories looking for a new medicine, or 2 companies trying to solve the space race, or 2 IT companies trying to invent a new app. And they might be in different parts of the world. They may not know each other, but you'll find that within days of each other, both of these answers arrive. And this is because at a high level, I don't really like the word high and low, but at a particular level, there's the conscious expanding, and our minds are part of a universal mind. And we can tap into this mind. And one of the things that people are telling me in the past few weeks that I'm really good at, that I didn't realize I was good at, it's one of these things that people need to tell you, is I'm really good at taking a lot of complicated information and then summarizing it, but not from the information that was given to me. So, you can get a huge amount of complexity given to you. Like today, I was in a meeting and I took 12 pages of notes. And the guy said to me, I'd like a summary by Wednesday. And I thought I could have it by tomorrow morning, because I believe in giving the unconscious the ability to solve problems. But then at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I got a download. And this is another serendipity thing. People that write books will know this. My latest book, which is my first thriller, came in an 8,000 word download in 6 hours, from 12:30 a.m. until 6:30 a.m. So when I woke up at 12:30 a.m. that morning on the 25th of May, and I started hearing in my mind a book, I thought I can go back to sleep, but this is happening. I've got to write it down. And I actually typed those 8,000 words into my cell phone. And it was chapter 1, chapter 2. And I was writing it into my notepad, and I was copying and pasting it into Google Keep in case something crashed. I didn't want to lose what I typed. And the next morning, I used Scrivener to help me to write. It's a fantastic program for writing complicated reports, complicated documents, books. Scrivener sounds like something from Harry Potter. Kind of appeals to me as a dreamer. And I put the documents in there, and then you create a manifest. It's got a name, and it was 8,000 words. I was quite surprised. And I'd spent months trying to work at how to get a particular point across, and I was creating presentations, and then I got this book download, and it put all of that stuff into my world. I live in the future, and I could write the book as a science fiction book, the way that I see the world. As Busisiwe said, the leader needs to take themselves on a journey where they're in front. And one of the things that I've experienced is, and I'm sure that Noden has also experienced this in the SAP consulting world, you're at the beginning. There's like the Concorde is flying at Mach 2, and everything else is behind you. And here you are right at the tip of this triangle with everyone, and you've got to try and find a way to get these people to be able to catch up with where you are. And it's the difficulty of leadership and the difficulty of consulting. But it happens when you allow things to happen in the serendipitous, if I can invent that word, in a serendipity way. Other things that happen is we've got the power of intention, the law of attraction, and the secret. And the secret happens when someone comes home from work and they say, gee, I had a lousy day today. And then I say to them, but there was a minute in your day that was lousy. Isn't that correct? And they'll say, yes, there was a minute that was lousy. And the other 196, however many minutes are now, 14,400, I think that number comes to mind. All the other minutes were great, but just that 1 minute was bad. So the secret says, identify the bad minute, and then everything else was great. And in Judaism, there's a song, which is Dayenu. It happens on Passover. And it says, if God had done this, it would have been enough. If God had done that, it would have been enough. All these things, it would have been enough. And it's translated. You can see the book of Kabbalah here, which I'm studying at the moment, the Zohar. It's translated in that into you wake up in the morning and you go and you look in the mirror and you've still got teeth. Wow, Dayenu, everything's great. You go to the toilet and things are still working, dayenu, everything's great. You go and have breakfast and there's still food in the fridge, dayenu, it's great. Then you go out into the world. Hopefully you got dressed in between, whatever you needed to do, and maybe then the car broke down. And then you think, no, I'm having a bad day. But there's a million things that happen before that, in that serendipity of the beautiful world that we live in, that we can tap into, that we can say, yes, Nolan, I've been through a lot of shit in my life. I've had a lot of depression caused because, I'm one of those guys, probably most of the speakers here, we're at that point, that really lonely point, where the Concorde is and everything is behind, and we're trying to lift up and bring people to where we are because we really want to share who we are and what our world is. So that's the crown chakra, the free flow of energy and information and sharing. A couple more examples. Let me just see what Harriet wrote. Wow, David, sorry, Busisiwe, I can resonate so much with what you're talking about. And Harriet, I can relate, David. I recall some days of writing my book when energy flowed and I typed 24 hours. Of course, bathroom breaks. While my husband brought me chai, and exactly. So that's called being in flow. And you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you realize the computer program is going to get solved now and you've got to go to your desk. And then at 10 o'clock, your wife calls you and says, David, you've been sitting at your computer for 6 hours and you haven't got up, you haven't been to the toilet, and I want to make you a cup of tea, come to the kitchen. So there's this, but you go to a restaurant, and you sit down, and at the next table is a friend you haven't seen for 20 years. You pick up the phone and someone's on the line that you were thinking about. So there's all of the stuff that we don't necessarily understand, but it's just at the edge of consciousness. It's just there waiting for us to tap into. So I think that, you've got the soul, which is the third eye, and then you've got the crown, which is tapping into universal energy, tapping into universal wisdom, tapping into what the universe can give. The thing about universe is universe can only give. Universe never takes. It's like love and light. It only gives and it never takes. It's always expanding and it's always growing. Of course, there's chaos, which will try and shrink it into a little ball, but then it's always expanding. So I just want to end by saying that serendipity happens when you allow things, the things that Nolan and Busisiwe spoke about before me. You allow something to happen. You say, gee, I had a bad minute. I had a bad hour. My father died. In my case, my best friend died. Her parents, she was the only child, and I became responsible for looking after the whole death process, and it was really difficult, but it was, I've been with people who've died, but I wasn't responsible from the death to the grave. But in this case, I was responsible, and, it allowed me to see some other part of life. And, one might not say that it's serendipity, but every miracle, every coincidence, every sharing allows serendipity to happen. So thank you. Let's see what else people are writing. Sometimes the realization comes years later, seeing exactly. So something happened to me in 2016, and someone told me to do something and I did it, but I didn't understand what she was telling me, and she might have not have understood what she was telling me to do. And I've only realized now, 6 years later, what I should have done, and that's what I'm doing. And what I'm doing now is I'm rebuilding my online profile. And then by doing that, people are coming to me. She said to me, take yourself away and people will come to you. But it's not about taking myself away. It's about still being there, transmitting, but then allowing people to come to me. So that's something that took me a really long time and a lot of agonizing to get to. Grace is defined as the breath of God. So you feel that, you feel the grace. Caroline Mace has got a fantastic book about grace. And yes, thank you. Thanks, everybody.